Welcome to one more episode of this beautiful world where we explore diversity and inclusion. myAvtar, my identities. Today's episode, we have an amazing guest who really needs no introduction, but then I have to tell you that he is a combination of so many different identities that it's going to be amazing unraveling who the real Abhijit Iyer-Mitra is. Welcome Abhijit to myAvtar, my identity, and it's fantastic having you with us today.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you. Young Abhijit, the little boy, paint me a word picture.
In one word, nightmare. More like Dennis the Menace, I guess.
Okay.
Very, always a rule breaker.
Okay.
Very problematic. But in spite of that, loved by all my teachers and all my friends' parents. Teachers and my parents, there was always that balance that they were like, it's fine to break certain rules, it's not fine to break certain other rules.
Okay.
So it was a balance between being the little menace and also being very precocious in a sense. Because whatever I chose to do, I would be pretty good at it. So it used to go in spurts. So in some places where I really liked my maths teacher, my maths scores would go from something like 20 out of 100, 30 out of 100 to suddenly 98, 99 out of 100. Same happened in chemistry. I didn't like chemistry, but then suddenly I liked hydrocarbons. So every time hydrocarbons was being taught, it would be 100 on 100.
You know, when I hear you speak about your childhood, the first thought that comes to my mind is, how did everybody react when you came out? And you know, Abhijit, you are in real terms a minority, in a manner of speaking. You're an out and proud gay individual, and you have actually kind of, broken every type of stereotype there is and risen to the top of your profession. It must have been tough. So I just wanted to ask you, how did you manage that process of actually coming out to your people, and what was their reaction?
So the most tough thing in this entire journey was the sort of presumed reactions I had thought people would come up with. Oh my God. Okay. It wasn't their reaction. So the funny thing was, I've actually never faced any active homophobia when I've come out to people. Okay. So initially what happened was I never told my mom, I told all my aunts first. And they're like, yeah, we always knew, we always guessed. It was some variation on that theme. And their next reply, so the actual part of coming out would last only 5 seconds, as long as it took to say, yeah, I knew or I guessed or something like that. Okay. The immediate next reaction used to be, what will other people say? Okay. Think about that. Then finally when I came out to my mom, again, it was the easiest thing I did, because even though mentally it was the biggest decision I took. When I told her, she's like, okay, that's fine. Are you sure? It lasted for something like 2-3 minutes, and then it was the standard question, what are other people going to say? So I told her, Mommy, everybody's known about it for a long time. You're the last person I'm telling, and it was fine. But the main thing here is, a lot of what we do is construct our own mental barriers. We assume people are going to react a certain way. So just ensure that you're very, very good at what you do, and that you're financially independent and you have a buffer.
Okay, I mean, that's really an amazing point of view. Be very good at what you do and be financially independent. Do you mean that actually guarantees a better level of acceptance, Abhijit?
It gives you more confidence. Okay. And for me, financial independence is the symptom. Because financial independence comes when you're very good at your job and you're actually earning enough money. And it's also a psychological state which makes you confident, because you know you're in the right profession.
You've had, somewhat of a tough journey, and then you've come into your own, and you're really changing a lot of things within the ecosystem in very many ways. I'm going to ask you, as a leader within your own organization, how do you ensure that this inclusion is further cultivated? What do you do?
So I work in policy, and people keep confusing policy with academics. Academia is understanding the shades of grey. Policy is not shades of grey. See, policy is black and white. You understand that these are the positives, these are the negatives. It's like, is this guy guilty or not? You can't say, I don't know, there's shades of grey. A verdict is always guilty or not guilty. So that's what policy does. And for me, what it's been is, for me, inclusivity has been, consciously identifying stereotypes, then trying to break them. So, there is an initial level of affirmative action involved.
Okay.
But then the moment those people get through the sort of gates, you live on your work product, how good your work is. So it then becomes a meritocracy. And I think that is the main step towards inclusion we've taken. We break down the entry barriers. There is no compensation given, there is no leeway given to you on your work just because you're a certain identity.
Abhijit, I must ask you this. It's been amazing having this conversation with you and understanding how you, as a member of a marginalized community, has managed to achieve so much and really break those stereotypes. What do you think would be the advice or, those words of wisdom that you would like to give other organizations or institutions which are embarking upon their diversity journey? How do you think they could be more LGBTQ friendly, and what should they just need to do?
The first is understand that it is you're helping yourself in getting out of the box points of view.
Okay.
You're not doing them a favor. What you're doing is you're breaking your own mental barriers in a sense, in allowing a new set of thought patterns to come in. And in a competitive environment, it is those new thought patterns that basically help you become more profitable. This isn't social service you're doing, it's actually a very smart business decision you're taking.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, remember every employee, like we said, has a set of positives and has a set of negatives. So, at one point of time, women were excluded from the workplace because of the menstrual cycle and things like that.
Yes.
Now, people from sexual minorities and the transgender community and all of that, they come with a different set of problems.
Okay.
It isn't insurmountable. Just remember the solutions to that are slightly different. So if for women they need to take 2-3 days off, you work that into the work cycle because their productivity is so high and they bring a unique set of talent and perspective into the workplace. Similarly, the LGBTQ community also brings a completely different perspective into the workplace, and they have very specific individualized problems. So it's really fine-tuning the workplace to accept whatever those liabilities that are and maximize the profitability that you get out of them.
Just extending the thought a little further, would you say that organizations have to have very customized policies or very customized sort of enablers for people from very different identities? Would you say that's an answer?
Yes and no. I think most of the enablers are entirely mental. You have certain preconceived notions that this is what. So for example, take a transgender person, the way they dress. You might see an Adam's apple with a sari, which may, for some people, that becomes unacceptable in the workplace.
Okay.
But then, we've seen in America how people have transitioned from formal clothing into informal clothing in Silicon Valley.
Right.
I mean, you attend meetings in Silicon Valley, Jack at Twitter always comes in a hoodie and things like that. It's basically breaking stereotypes in your own mind. You're not really doing anything extra or very little extra to actually enable them. But always measure that against the value add that the person brings to your organization.
Okay. Thank you, Abhijit. And needless to mention, it was completely fascinating to have this interaction with you. And I really, really hope that, people who watch this episode, they take away amazing inputs, not only from a personal point of view, but also from an organizational point of view from what you had to share. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh. So my one advice to the community would be, always approach every problem with confidence, never with diffidence. Diffidence won't allow you to grow. Confidence will take you everywhere. And that's what I've done my entire life. My avatar, my identity, I've always stayed true to it. You do the same.